Welcome into a playoff edition of the Women's Basketball Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things women's college hoops, WNBA, a little unrivaled news as well. Mia O'Brien, that's not Mitchell Northam. No, Mitch is still on paternity leave from both here at the Women's Basketball Podcast and OG Triangle Media, as well as at SB Nation. We wish him and Rach and Savannah Rose Northam all the best. And Rebecca Kopelman has returned to the Thunderdome. That is the Women's Basketball Podcast. Reba, welcome back in. And perfect timing because, man, oh man, I said it to producer Dimitri before we came on the air. Truthfully, I think the opening round of this year's WNBA postseason probably, if nothing else, rivals the championship round of 1 year ago. But it's up there in the pantheon of great rounds of postseason play in women's basketball history. What say you?
I mean, I think that really the format change of the 1-1-1 in that first round has been just chef's kiss. You know, I mean, the fact that you get to take it home and it's forced a number of game threes that we hadn't seen previously. The Fever last year getting knocked out after, returning to the playoffs for the first time in many years, and now making it to the semifinals and putting on a show.
Put on an absolute show. And that's why, while the Fever are rolling, the Minnesota Lynx are a juggernaut. I have multiple people in the Jaguars-Texans press box coming up to me saying, is the fix in? Does everyone know Minnesota is going to win it all? We got to take this thing in chronological order. Since the last time I spoke to you guys, we didn't end up doing part 2 of that quarterfinal round of the podcast, ultimately because the games were just so bonkers between Tuesday and Thursday. Not so much Wednesday, which we're going to get into here briefly, because I have some thoughts on that. And then Friday, the Mercury wrap up the series with the New York Liberty. And at that point, we're looking ahead to Sunday where things got even crazier. But we will go chronological order. Let's start with that quarterfinal round. Let's start with that number 1 overall seed, the Minnesota Lynx. They sweep their opening series over the 8 seed, the Golden State Valkyries, with a 75-74 win over GSV. The Lynx rallied from 17 down. They rallied, Rebecca, and it was funny because I went to bed and you were texting me. I had an early morning gym class. At that point in time, comparatively to other games down the stretch where Golden State would hit the three ball like crazy in the first quarter, cool off in the second half, and ultimately that's where the cliff occurred and that's where the competition caught up to them. That was not the case in this one. Golden State had a 14-point lead heading into the fourth quarter. Minnesota 0-76 all time when trailing by 14 or more. So 17-point lead for for Golden State at one point. And then it happened. Courtney Williams, Nafisa Collier, Cheryl Reeve, they are inevitable. They take a 1-point victory. They escape Valhalla South. But at the same time, what is the bigger takeaway? That Minnesota keeps finding ways to win and that they are a machine? Or that Golden State's that upstart little expansion franchise that brought them to the brink and not even in their home arena?
I mean, I was going to throw that last piece in. I was going to say, we'll never know if they were in the real Valhalla, if things would have turned out differently, because I mean, they brought the same energy there, but it's just like, it's different. The look to things, the atmosphere is a little different. Obviously not in your home stadium. And I think, there's a little bit of column A, column B. The Lynx are obviously a powerhouse, and they have all these pieces that have been clicking all season long, even when C was injured. And then you also have this expansion team that has been incredible in their and they have been, rotating pieces in and out. And yeah. I think, Nakase winning Coach of the Year was partially because of that, just kind of ability to pull and pluck these players and put them in and put them out. I think that there were, maybe some decisions down the stretch at the end where she could have rotated in different players to maybe try and extend their lead and break away a little further. But I will say, I think it comes down to defense, and I try to understand how both these teams do it, because they just swarm on defense on both ends. And that's how the Valkyries were able to pull away so far initially, but then the Lynx know how to do that too, and they can come right back to it. But I think that, they just find ways to win, and they did.
And it's a credit to Golden State, to your point. I don't know where Natalie Nakase was pulling some of these players off the waiver wire from Europe, plugging, playing, finding all of the right pieces to fit the puzzle, to the point that, which will hit the postseason awards at the end of today's show, Veronica Burton wins most improved player, but if I'm being completely honest, Kayla Thornton was the story of Golden State through the first half of the season. She makes the All-Star game. She has a season-ending injury. No one's even talking about Kayla Thornton last week. It's all about Veronica Burton, which is a tribute to what Natalie Nakase has been able to build out there. It's not about the name on the back of the jersey. It's about the name on the front of the jersey, which is GSV. And so the future is bright, or should I say light purple, for the folks out there. Lavender, right? That's what do they call the shade of purple?
I think so. I'm not sure.
I think it's lavender. I think it's less. Sorry, Golden State fans.
It's pretty.
Purple. Yeah, it's pretty. We appreciate your color scheme. And so the future is purple, as Minnesota, the only team in the opening quarterfinal round to sweep their series, because yes, things were bonkers everywhere else in this opening 1-1-1 best of 3 round. Let's go to the number 2 overall seed, the Las Vegas Aces. Last time I spoke to you, dominated Seattle in their opening game of the postseason. And then things got weird. Seattle, on the back of Dominique Malonga, comes back to win it all but at the buzzer, 86-83. The series goes back to Vegas. Seattle, once again, with that weird, they're old school, but they've got this 19-year-old phenom on their roster. They once again bring A'ja Wilson and company to the brink. Wilson, the MVP, ties her career high with 38 points as Las Vegas escapes 74-73. They move on to the semifinals. We'll get to what happened there, because it brings into question. This was an Aces team that, until that dramatic victory in Seattle, Rebecca, had won 17 straight games. I sat here with Mitch before they popped the baby out, and I said, that is my team to beat. I believe Las Vegas has found something. Becky Hammon is no longer punting puppies. And now they almost get eliminated by Seattle. And not to jump too far ahead, but they dropped game 1 to Indiana, the 6th seed in the semis. Should we be concerned about Vegas?
I mean, I think that Vegas has shown, obviously, they have figured it out. And just like Minnesota, they have, they find those ways to win. And I think it's interesting just seeing how the talk around Melissa Smith being kind of this piece that has helped them
first
so
round
much.
Pick worthy. First round pick. She was worth a first round pick for the trade.
I mean, she is, I think that, there were definitely pieces of Melissa that we saw on the Fever last year that you could see that good player. Becky clearly has a way of being a good coach. I mean, she's fantastic. She has the RBF, but she is fantastic at what she does. But she
has the RBF. She also had some RBF comments. We'll get to those here in just a second. Continue.
Yeah, but I do think that you have also A'ja, who in game 1 against the Fever, I will say she had a rough first half, but then she starts turning it around, and when she can hit shots, it's like, how do you stop the woman? And I think that she is obviously a big piece of the puzzle. She obviously wins MVP, and I would almost make an argument that winning of MVP is kind of like this interesting piece for the league, because she was a driving force behind that 17-game win streak. And I think that nobody was expecting Las Vegas to seed so high in the playoffs.
Me least among them.
I mean, I remember listening to you and Mitch say, Aces are on the downslide.
They may not make the playoffs.
Yeah, right. It was a real possibility. And then they go bonkers. And but then, they do have these times where they drop these games. And I think that it's definitely few and far between as of lately, obviously, with how much they've won. But they have the same, they can pick up on defense. They have a deep bench at times. I think that their bench is maybe one of the spots where they're struggling, where they're sitting some people. But you're going to have these superstars, and you have Jackie Young and you have A'ja Wilson, who are really the driving force behind getting the points on the board and ultimately winning these games.
Right, which the extent of their rotation and how deep they can go and the depth of the bench compared to the last 3 seasons is something that we both saw when we were at Gamebridge Fieldhouse when the Fever defeated them by, 25 plus 4th of July weekend, 30 plus was the final score, something like that. All I know is I couldn't talk to my good friend Megan Gustafson after the game because Becky Hammon wasn't happy with her team. I'm still holding that against Becky. We're going to get to headlines after we run through the onslaught of games, give you guys a playoff primer. But when we get to those headlines, and so this one we might as well hit now as we have a requiem for the Seattle Storm's 2024 season, Rebecca. Noelle Quinn was dismissed. The expectation, according to league sources and reports, is that Seattle will completely overhaul their coaching staff and their approach, which is fascinating when you consider, again, as I have critiqued them all summer long, they are the 2025 New York Yankees in that they have a phenom in Dominique Malanga, much like Aaron Judge, albeit, I'm doing the math. Not 20. 15 years younger. She's 19. He's in his early 30s. Point being, you've got this absolute phenom who has the potential to be like Aaron Judge, be an MVP candidate. And then you couple that with a bunch of players who were MVP candidates 6-7 years ago, and they're still on the back nine, but you're clinging to them as if they are in their prime currently. And so I am interested. New staff comes in. What do you believe is the outlook for the Storm heading into 2026?
I mean, there's so many different pieces around the Storm too of, these players requesting trades, some talk about some difficulties in the locker room. You have Jewel Lloyd requesting a trade, then Alicia Clark comes out and requests a trade. And there was a little bit of chatter online about Tiffany Mitchell, who was released by the Aces, went over to Seattle, wasn't really getting a lot of playing time, some speculation going on. She kind of came out and said, I get this is a job. These things happen. Didn't seem to completely deny issues in the locker room or confirm, but I mean, there's just seems like some drama, some things, and they obviously had some of the legal action that was going to be taken, and then it wasn't. So I think that it seems like Seattle needs kind of a reset button. But the other thing that's so interesting is the fact that free agency is going to be such a free for all that there's this opportunity to, see what works and what doesn't. And I don't even know how this all ends up happening with the free agency that's going to come upon us. But you have such an opportunity to bring in some, younger pieces, but, you want to keep some of those veteran pieces. I just think that obviously Dom Malanga is got to be one of the centerpieces of your offense and your defense. I mean, she's just incredible. She has the length, she has the speed, and she has the basketball IQ, clearly. And so I think that you have to find the pieces that are going to work around her, almost like a Caitlin Clark situation, where you have to build around that. And obviously you have NECA. If she wants to stay there, you can hope. But and she's still doing incredible things, not talked about a whole lot, but she
had 24. She had 24 in game 2 of the quarterfinal round. So, I mean, she's still scoring in double figures. I would say this too, Rebecca, because it's a great point. And obviously we don't know what is to come with CBA negotiations, the deadline being October 31st. But ultimately, if those negotiations are to go through, or if the 1-year extension is to be signed and agreed upon, the Phoenix Mercury are proof. Certainly the Golden State Valkyries as an expansion team are proof that there are ways that you can turn a corner rather quickly. You can rebuild and reload fast, although we're going to get to a team here momentarily that, in their own words, took a methodical approach to rebuilding and now appear to be sustainable for the long haul. I am talking about the Atlanta Dream. Are you ready to hit that quarterfinal series that, quite frankly, I don't want to say it was the best. We're biased, because then we're going to get to the semifinals here, folks, and the Indiana Fever, man. It's just, I don't know how you encapsulate what we've seen over the last 3-game stretch. I know we're homers. The Indiana Fever dropped game 1 of this 3-game set with the 30 seed, the Atlanta Dream, in the quarterfinal round. Then they absolutely beat down the 3rd overall seed at Gainbridge Fieldhouse last Tuesday night, 77-60. Pure domination, and then turn around Thursday, go down to the ATL, and they pull off a dramatic 87-85 victory after being on the brink of elimination to eliminate the Atlanta Dream. We'll get to their requiem here in just a second, but big picture, Rebecca, why are the Indiana Fever currently playing in the WNBA semifinals?
I think this has a lot to do with the culture that is created there. I saw a quote from I think it might have been Lexi saying, we love each other. And also, I mean, I know you wrote it down too about Kelsey, and the fact that she's saying, my dad was the person who believed in me and pushed me this way. And she's comparing Stephanie White's coaching to what she was getting from her dad, the support that she had from her father. And so I think that Stephanie White has a huge role to play here, whether, there's a lot of criticism that's going around early on in the season, maybe still today. But
I don't know. Caitlin's tweeting a lot. We're going to get to her tweets too. But she's also tweeting Stephanie White. So I do think that is a storyline that bears merit before we go any further. This idea of everyone wanted to chase Steph off. They wanted to say she was a merchant off of Alyssa Thomas and DeWanna Bonner. We'll also get to Don't Wanna momentarily. But ultimately, I do think that this was always going to take time. And then when you couple that with the fact that the Fever have had 19 different players on their roster at different points throughout the 2025 season, what do we call them? The hospital squad, the JV squad? Like, I mean, this is as ragtag a bunch as it gets. And so I think, and again, I don't want to say, and I don't want to put this evil out there into the universe, but I think that there's going to be a conversation at some point of Stephanie White is at her best when she has an idea of, okay, you do this, you do this, you do that, and you bring those talents together, as opposed to, okay, I have Caitlin Clark, how do I build around her? And I can tell you already, regardless of what happens in the semifinal series with the Aces, that is going to be the storyline going into 2026.
Well, and I'd agree, and I bring up 2 points on that. She had success, without Caitlin before. And I mean, you can even see what she did with the Suns.
Caitlin had success without her, with the PE team as her head coach. So,
but then you also had number 2, about what you're saying. Aaliyah was on Bird's Eye View, Sue Bird's podcast, and was saying our mentality has been like the next woman up, like, whoever's doing it. And you can see that even, when Caitlin was playing, if somebody's struggling, Natasha steps up, Kelsey steps up, Aaliyah steps up. And it's not necessarily, you have games where a lot of them are in double figures, but then you have these games where it's like, it's like the Asia Wilson, Asia Wilson is always the one,
right?
Always. Yes. But with the Fever, I think it is that kind of mentality where it is like, okay, you have the hot hand, you're taking over. And so I think that that's something that really works a lot, that you don't have to always rely on that one person to get you to the finish line. And maybe, yes, Kelsey Mitchell kind of a lot, but at the same time, you have these supporting casts that can come in. And the fact that Stephanie White is able to plug these players in, like we talked about with Natalie Nakase, that you're putting in all these different people, and you need to make sure they gel, and you need to have the chemistry quickly, and 2, that they can, pop into your offensive and defensive schemes and work. And I want to also mention Brianna Turner for being
yes, absolutely, especially in the series with Atlanta. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, someone who sat on the bench, and we were kind of questioning, like, why is she here for a while? And I was like, put her in. She's a vet. Let her play. I want to see it happen. And she get like garbage minutes and garbage time, and has now, I mean, I'd argue almost could, start, but she, is a great spark off the bench defensively, especially getting blocks. I mean, just really an amazing person for the way that and basketball player for sitting on the bench and being a voice for the team, but then also coming in when it matters and making a difference.
Yeah. And number 1, we have a lot of fans of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish on this podcast. So go Irish. Glad Bree Turner could deliver for you guys. But 2, I had a conversation in the Jaguars victory locker room on Sunday afternoon with regards to this idea of over the course of an NFL season, and I think it rings true for the WNBA, the MNBA as well, this idea of, can you grow week to week? Or once you're on the hamster wheel, that is the season, can you actually develop as a player in season? I think Bree Turner has developed in season. I think she also waited for her name to be called, her number to be called, and then she delivered on the biggest of stages. But I do think you've seen growth in the system. And again, chicken or the egg question, we love those here on the Women's Basketball Podcast. But this idea of, did Stephanie White put her in the best position, or was it quite simply Bree Turner just evolving as a player, growing as a player? And when she did get the call, she was ready to deliver. We'll get back to the Fever, don't worry, because what a show in game 1 of the semifinals. But now our requiem for the Atlanta Dream. I do think, Rebecca, it bears a conversation of how their GM, Dan Pandover, has built this roster. He moves around the board in 22. They land the number 1 and number 15 overall picks. That translates into a perennial all-star in Ryan Howard, the number 1 overall pick, and then Naz Hillman with the 15th overall pick, 6th woman of the year in 2025. They get Alicia Gray in the fold in 2023. They don't panic when things don't pan out in 24. They wait to get the right coach. It's a non-traditional hire, and Carl Semesco this past offseason. They bring in Brittany Griner. They bring in Bree Jones. It's a ragtag bunch on the surface. Mitch and I were both rooting for Carl, who we both have covered through Florida Gulf Coast in the ASUN Conference. But ultimately, we had questions. And they go out and they win 30-plus games. And it's a credit to taking that more methodical approach to what we just were saying earlier about a team like Phoenix, who goes out in free agency and strikes gold. A team like Golden State that maybe they don't have any marquee players yet, but they're able to find strength in numbers. And I think Atlanta, on the other hand, plays the long game. And while I don't think Brittany Griner is going to be there 5, 6, 7 years from now, Ryan Howard's going to be there 5 years from now, I would think, so long as they can keep her in the fold. Naz Hillman's going to be there, and that bodes well, especially if Carl Semesco continues to push all the right buttons.
Yeah, I mean, Alicia Gray and Jordan Canada and Bree Jones, who is one who's on my radar that maybe the Fever could pull in, coming from Stephanie White's old crew. But I at the beginning of the season was kind of like how do they do it? How does it happen? But then when they started playing, obviously a difficult matchup for the Fever, honestly, in the regular season, that just constantly was a struggle. But then watching them,
Griner and Bree Jones, I mean, that's just it's tough for a team that already the front court was questionable because Aaliyah Boston is an undersized 5, but then you bring in Natasha Howard, but then what other depth do you have there in the front court?
Exactly. And so just a tough matchup every time for them. But then watching Atlanta just in general over the course of the season, just I honestly was like hoping they'd be the dark horse that kind of just snuck in there. And I was expecting them to make their way to the championship game. Obviously the Fever soured that, but I think still just some incredible growth for them and some really great things for the future for Carl and for Ryan Howard and whoever else ends up sticking around in Atlanta there. But Pow, I mean, on a rookie contract, you're going to have her. She's been doing some great stuff. And I think that obviously he knows how to put people where they need to be and figure it out and then shoot a bunch of threes and get it done.
And it certainly brings into question between the success that Carl has had, the success that Lynn Roberts had down the stretch with the Sparks after Cam Brink returned from her ACL tear. Will we see more WNBA teams go out and get college head coaches, long-tenured college head coaches? Sorry, Coach Chris in Dallas. We'll get to you maybe later. I don't know if associate head coach, assistant coaches, and bringing them in, if that's really the best idea. But Carl Semesco was at Florida Gulf Coast for over a decade. Lynn Roberts was at Utah forever. It is very interesting to see the non-traditional, hey, would you want to do this? And the success we've seen, if only in a limited sample size. One more quarterfinal series we want to hit, and it regards the reigning WNBA champions who have been eliminated. The New York Liberty blow a 1-0 3-game series lead as they suffered the second worst playoff loss in franchise history, the largest home playoff loss in WNBA history in Game 2 at the Barclays Center. This is where that Wednesday night standalone game, my beef, comes in. We'll get to some beef later, folks. Don't worry. We're going to have beefs of the week. We've got multiple. But this is my personal beef because I just was so disheartened. And I know you can't predict baseball, Susan. You can't predict the WNBA calendar. ESPN, my employer, and the Walt Disney Company are trying to maximize national standalone windows. And this idea of, okay, yes, they have to compete against the NFL Sunday calendar, but ultimately, if we can get multiple WNBA games on ABC, on ESPN, and put all of them on the same day, it's really cool. I don't like that it's Sunday, but I respect it because you're not going to have that availability on Monday night because Monday Night Football exists on the ABC, Walt Disney, ESPN family of networks. At the same time, I would have loved to have seen 2 to 3 games on Wednesday when I know as a sports fan, I'm scrolling up and down the channels. I've got multiple people texting me saying, hey, there's nothing else on outside of baseball. I'm going to tune in for the playoffs. And the only game that there was the reigning champs. And so on the surface level, if you're Disney, you're like, great, this is awesome. And then they just laid an absolute egg. Oh, and then wait for it. because of Breanna Stewart's injury, which was a very compelling storyline going into game 2. Now you've got another injury upon a mountain, a litany of them that the Liberty have had throughout the course of the season. You go to Phoenix for game 3 of this 3-game set and this elimination game, and Breanna Stewart, with a sprained MCL, is the only player on the New York Liberty to score in the fourth quarter in a 79-73 loss as Phoenix advances. Let's start with the defending champs before we get to the Mercury, Reba. I don't want to blame the injuries, but they have truly not looked the same since Stewie's extended absence in the summer after another knee injury. They had lost Jonquel Jones already for extended time prior to the All-Star break. Sabrina Ionescu misses time. Emma Mieseman was good, but not great. Cheryl Reeves' prediction that she was going to regret it. Maybe she does. I don't know. Leonie Febach gets hurt in the playoffs. Like, I truly don't want to blame injuries, but I don't think you have much choice otherwise when it comes to analyzing the New York Liberty's 2025 season.
Yeah, I think that the injuries definitely hurt. I mean, even see, just the way that Sabrina came back and was struggling to shoot the 3. And I mean, Stewie, yes, playing hurts, drops 30 and then scores 14 points on her own in the fourth quarter. But you even see it when, Caitlin was playing this season, she wasn't playing the same. And it just is the way that those things go. You're not going to bounce right back after you're cleared from injury, but I mean, unless you're Nafisa Collier, I think. But they had, I think, I guess we'll make it a 2-part thing here. You have the injuries, but maybe too much of a reliance on kind of the core. I don't know, what would you call it?
The big 3. No, on the big three. There's too much of a reliance on the big 3. You can say that. It's okay.
I mean, I would think that maybe that's kind of part of the problem where you're missing that depth. There was a lot of criticism of, not playing Marianne Johannes. Izzy Harrison hardly saw minutes, who also was hurt during the season. Natasha Cloud was hurt during the season. I mean, you had all of these injuries here and there. Is it an issue that because of those injuries, they didn't have the time to gel with Natasha Cloud at the point guard, and you had all these different moving pieces of the puzzle? It's possible, but yeah, definitely. I think kind of a 2-part issue of that reliance on your big 3, and then all of them being injured at some point in the season for extended periods of time.
Didn't seem to affect the fever there. I said it. Just throwing it out there. Meanwhile, for the Mercury side of things, after a slow start in game 1, which was a slow scoring affair in that quarterfinal series, Alyssa Thomas, the first 20-point triple-double in WNBA playoff history in the clinching game of that 3-game set as the Phoenix Mercury advanced to face the top-seeded Minnesota Lynx in the semifinals. And so now, that is where we find ourselves. We're recording this on Monday, September 22nd. Now that we've gotten you caught up to speed of how we got here, 1 game already in the books in each of these 2 semifinal series. I'm going to call an audible. We'll just continue with Phoenix. We'll continue with that conversation. The Minnesota Lynx win game 1 of this best of 5 series, Rebecca, 82-69. DeWanna Bonner does not want to score. Have to get the joke off. Dejanay Carrington is done for the year, but Minnesota is as deep as any roster we've seen in recent memory in the WNBA. Cheryl Reeves says this is their year. What was your takeaway from game 1 of this series? What can we expect on Tuesday night?
The Lynx were, kind of neck and neck with Phoenix there for most of the game, and they didn't really break away until the fourth quarter. And I think that there's a testament to their tenacity, obviously, and just their prolific offense and defense. But then you also have Cheryl Reeve, who's a fantastic coach, who also knows, like, if this is not working, I will pull you away, and put somebody else in. And you have, I think that willingness to go to the bench, and you're putting in whoever needs to go in at that time. You're not shooting while you're out. You're not getting the rebounds, you're out. And so I think she knows how to plug those players in. The Maria Klindikova, just getting put in and was snagging offensive rebounds, went to K-Mac on the arc. And we got a "you bet" from Ryan Rucco.
I texted. I was like, "Oh, my soul is it's just so full when I hear Ryan just say "you bet." She got
it was that turning point. But I think that it's still maybe a tough series. If the Lynx win again at home, which they have a very big home court advantage this year, then it may not be so tough. But if they drop game 2 to Phoenix, I think it may be tougher because Phoenix has a tough atmosphere at home, and they're a great team when they're on it. But sometimes that's a situation too where it's like you need that next person to step up. And Alyssa Thomas does fantastic things. Obviously, is basically averaging almost a triple double like every day of her life. But then you need, Ka to be scoring, and you need all of their rookies that just are working their magic there to.
Can I give you an
scoring.
X factor? X factor for me.
Yeah.
For the Mercury, Satu Sabally. In that
for sure.
series opening loss to the New York Liberty in the game 1 loss from 3-point range, 1 of 10. In the next 2 games, both wins for Phoenix, 2 for 4 from 3, 4 for 9 from 3. In this loss to Minnesota in game 1, 0 for 5 from 3.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that is the defining factor in whether or not the Mercury can pull out a victory. But ultimately, if we're going to talk big threes for the New York Liberty, a big 3 for the Phoenix Mercury, a big 3 for I go on down the line. Like that's like our favorite thing to talk about in sports. They need contributions, obviously, from Alyssa Thomas and Kalia Copper, which they're getting every single night. But the Mercury need Satu Sabally to be operating at an all-star level in order to compete with a team that, well, yes, they also only go 8 deep in their rotation. When you've got, at bare minimum, you're guaranteeing that backcourt of Courtney Williams and K-Mac, let alone Natisha Heidemann, is going to score in double figures, coupled with the always steady Nafisa Collier and also the co-defensive player of the year, Alana Smith. You're guaranteeing that you're going up against at least 3 players who are going to score in double figures, and you got to keep pace with them.
Yeah, and I think that there's a little bit of that kind of streakiness with Phoenix that they've struggled with not staying consistent. They have, I think, just a really great swarming defense as well, and they can put pressure on the ball, and they obviously are still, you have a great rebounding team, and you have some of the height with Dawana, even if she had 9 rebounds, even though she had 0 points. But she, then Alyssa Thomas obviously just muscling her way into everything. But I think that Satu, you need that consistency there. And if you're not getting it from her, then you're going to struggle. And you also have some really great defense on the other side with the Lynx. So it should be an interesting matchup. I'm sure that I don't think that Phoenix is going to make it out of this one, but I think it'll still be an interesting series.
Dejanay Carrington again done for the season after suffering a mid-left foot sprain in game 2 against the Golden State Valkyries. And so affecting that depth, but not testing it, at least as of this writing. Let's get to the series that y'all are here for. I don't want to call it David versus Goliath because so many people bought stock in the Indiana Fever. So many people placed their futures bets back in April, back in May. No one could have foreseen the litany of injuries. No one could have foreseen that Caitlin Clark would only play close to 20 games in her sophomore season in the WNBA. And yet here they are. They are up 1-0 over the 2-time WNBA champion with the 4-time MVP, Asia Wilson, Las Vegas Aces. Rebecca, the floor is yours because I was covering the Jaguars game during the game. So I watched it back on 2-time speed and just caught some highlights here and there, kind of, reviewed the biggest plays of the day. You watched it in its entirety. Walk us through why Indiana got the dub this go round comparatively to maybe were things similar or different to that quarterfinal round series against the Atlanta Dream.
I think that they obviously went in with a plan. And I think that one thing that was happening early on was that players were getting rotated early. You saw KK early, you saw Bree Turner early, and Aaliyah, I think one big thing was that she stayed out of foul trouble early on. Sometimes that matchup with Asia, she is getting into foul trouble pretty quickly. And she did get up to 2 fouls, I think, in the second quarter. But usually it's first quarter, AV's getting pulled out 2-3 minutes in, and you're like, great. So I think that was one thing. And they also just had no answer for Kelsey Mitchell. I mean, Kelsey Mitchell dropped 34 points, the most points for a player in their first, final debut and the most points in her playoff career, and which obviously isn't much of a playoff career, unfortunately, but this time around.
Tied for it was second most all time in Fever history, I'm assuming, to Tamika Catchings. But point being, still, it's an impressive number.
There you go. And so, I mean, they just did not have an answer for her. And they were setting good screens. They were getting Kelsey open. And she was also just like, she was driving to the cup. She was doing the thing that she does. She is fast and she knows how to score. The other thing is that they were holding Asia to her worst shooting performance in her playoff history, I believe.
Started 0 for 4. Not much. Yeah, much started 0 for 4. Started 0 for 4. Still finished with a double-double in the first half for the first time in a playoff career, just because.
Yes, of course. And then I think what was it, 6 of 22 for the entire game. And Aaliyah in an interview said, I just wanted to be kind of annoying. And she was up in her grill, and she was also doing so without fouling. Asia might have another, thought on that, but just really going up against her in that matchup. They were switching really well. There was one point where Lexi was guarding Asia briefly, but you had, Natasha Howard, you have Bree Turner, and you have those, the ability to have some more height against her, which is tough when you have some, Aaliyah being undersized. You only have Aaliyah on the floor, but I think just their defense was fantastic, and the ability to rotate in so many players. You got Shea in, just everybody scoring, and Odyssey Sims, I think, is also their X factor. I think sometimes that she, when Odyssey doesn't have as great of a game, that's when we tend to drop them. But she scored 19 points and had a great game, and I think that just all the pieces were clicking. I'm a little scared for the next one, but it was also the first time the Fever have ever beaten the Aces at home. So are they going to do it again? I hope so, but we're taking it back to Indy anyway.
Hey, well, we were there when the Fever again routed the Aces. And so I'm not saying, but I'm saying this is the year that maybe Indiana finally has Las Vegas's number. Maybe you're scared because of these comments, Rebecca. I will now read some quotes from Becky Hammon. First, we'll start with this because I agree with her 100%. 12 assists on 29 made baskets. That can't happen. That's not the style of basketball that they played when they went on that 17-game win streak, even if it was just a lot of Asia Wilson, but I digress. I understand the style of basketball that Becky Hammon wants to play, even if the personnel does not match what she has had in years past, and I respect that. So I heard that live in the post-game presser, and I was like, okay, got you, Becky. And then Becky says the following, and honestly, I thought this was AI. They haven't seen the real Aces yet. They caught us when they caught us when we were in turmoil. We'll buckle in, hone in where we can, and take care of business. Is this like the Mighty Mighty Ducks? Like, even like the whole Patrick Mahomes, like everyone's counting the Chiefs out. Like, I feel like we're in that news cycle with the Aces, but I'm also just like, dude, like, we are in turmoil. What turmoil are you in? You just won a playoff series 5 minutes ago, like a really dramatic one.
I do think that quote was from before they played the Fever. I believe. I think that it was in response. I think it was in response to someone asking, "Hey, the last time you guys met, you guys got stomped on."
Smoke.
And so
we were witness.
That it was before their 17-game win streak, and I think that was what she was referencing to. So then it just makes it that much worse that afterward they did not, I don't know. And so the other thing too is that at that point they hadn't seen the Fever, because the Fever had Ari that game, had Sophie, probably Bibby was there. I don't know who were we seeing
came back the next week for like 5 minutes and then she got hurt again.
Right. So, I mean, like the Fever team was also different. So, I mean, and I think that, they do have to tighten up on this next one. I think that it's not impossible for Indy to pull off another upset. Am I expecting it? No. Am I hoping for it? Hell yeah. But it's just a matter of if they can keep up the same things that they did, and hopefully they can see the light at the end of the tunnel and do something amazing. But I'm just glad they kept it close. And they won.
I love your shout, by the way, Rebecca, to the, we talked off the top about Stephanie White finally being able to push all the right buttons and figure out, okay, this is the right combination. But specifically with that front court, getting KK minutes, getting Bree Turner on the floor, because it goes beyond just having fresh legs. It's to the point you made earlier. Aaliyah Boston getting into foul trouble early plagued this Fever team early on throughout the course of a season in which they've, had their most wins since 2016. And yet Caitlin Clark, again, played barely 20 games. Point being, I agree. I think for the Fever to be competitive, for the Fever to pull off an upset in game 2 and throughout the course of this semifinal series, I think having a deep rotation is going to be critical, especially when you look at a front court that outside of Asia Wilson, look, we talked about Alyssa Smith, and I understand that it's not all about the scoring production. You get just 4 points out of her. You get 4 points out of friend of the program, Megan Gustafson. You get no offensive production. Once again, I know she only played a minute out of Kia Stokes. That's part of why she's only playing 1 minute. And so that's where, if you can dominate the paint outside of the best player in the world, which I know is a tough ask, but they've already done it in one game, so who says they can't do it again, coupled with sharp shooting from beyond the arc, which I know is a little bit more unpredictable, that's where I think the lane for success is for Stephanie White's team.
Absolutely. And I think that, to your point on Kia Stokes, who was starting
most of the first half of the season, and before they traded for Alyssa Smith, and also Kirsten Bell, her and Don't Wanna are both in the goose egg category. Nothing against the former Florida Gulf Coast Eagle, but I understand she's Becky's favorite, and she's a glue gal. I respect that. She's a glue gal. She does a lot more than just score. And also, let's be real, Jewel Lloyd really is playing the two. It's not really Kirsten Bell. It's Jewel, because Kirsten played 16 minutes and Jewel played 28. But you need to have, the problem with the Aces is, and I know they got away with it a lot in that 17-game win streak, when Asia is your only source of offensive production, and when you can bottle her up, even to the point where you're only holding her to, a 16-point output, which is still scoring in double figures, which is an off night for her. Like, that's how you win. That's the only way you can win. But Becky Hammon and the construction of this roster have just played into your hand and made it easier for you, because outside of Jackie Young, and if and when Chelsea Gray and Jewel Lloyd are on their A game, there's no one else. Like Sid Colson's not walking through that door because she's on the Fever bench right now with crutches.
Exactly. And I'll say 2 quick points. One is on, KB and Jewel, with the lack of offense from them. Jewel Lloyd, I don't think, had a field goal or scored until the second half. Maybe it was a long time. And
she had 3 total points. So just file that. It was a 3. It was a 3. That was it.
And so then you have that being an issue. You have KB not producing. And then the other thing that did happen that I just remembered was that Asia sat on the bench because she got up to 4 fouls, I think. And Becky sat her. They were like within arm's reach where they could have tried to make a run. And they did make some runs, but then the Fever were just able to clamp down and stop them. And then you get Asia sitting on the bench at some point. And I mean, they went to it up until, I think, 2 minutes left in the fourth, but then it was just like, all right, we're clearly not winning this one. And they drop a game at home. The first time the Fever beat the Aces at home in Las Vegas since they moved to Vegas.
Indiana led for 33 minutes the entire second half, an absolute demolition. Reba, you've got the Minnesota Lynx advancing in the other semifinal. Who do you got going to the championship series from this one?
Oh man, I gotta
put you on the spot.
We're going 5 games, and we're going 5. We're going 5 games. I think the Aces are going to take it in the end, but I think we're going all 5.
All right. Hey, listen, and that's a victory for the Fever. Although I am already placing a futures bet that come May, when Caitlin Clark is healthy, we are going to be back in the news cycle of, well, Stephanie White can coach a ragtag bunch, but she can't coach Caitlin Clark.
Oh.
It's going to be, I'm just telling you now, folks, I'm sorry, it's coming, and it's unfortunate, even though Caitlin defends her coach at every turn. All righty, now that we've caught you up to speed on the WNBA playoffs, we're going to combine a couple different segments, not just from the Women's Basketball Podcast, but also my Jaguars coverage. We're going to call this next segment Quick Hits of Beef. We're going to give you the headlines we may have missed throughout the course of this program today, as well as the beef, because there was a lot of it to go around in the world of women's basketball. Let's start with this. We already kind of hit on it a little bit, Rebecca. Noelle Quinn and the Seattle Storm staff got blown up. Elite news dump on an NFL Sunday, by the way. Well done, Seattle Storm. But my question is, We talked about the rebuild, the idea of maybe, you got to see exactly what free agency brings, what the CBA negotiations bring. But what direction do the Storm go? We just talked about this idea of, do you go pluck a coach from the college ranks? Is there an assistant you're eyeing right now who could do what Natalie Nakase did for the Golden State Valkyries for the Seattle Storm?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You obviously are probably going to be a bit selective and make sure you have somebody who is going to build a good culture and try and despite what's true or not, make sure that you have, some some good merit going into that locker room. I just remembered too, like Nika Mule, is she going to be alive next season? Will she?
I hope so.
I mean, I really hope so too, because that's another, great player that you can have there. But I don't really know, and I wish I knew more about all of the college coaches, but I would just say you find somebody who is going to make sure that you have a good culture in that locker room. And the other thing with Seattle is that it was just so streaky. They were so streaky. They could beat the Aces, and then they drop one to like the Dallas Wings, and then the Fever just had their number all season. So hopefully they can find someone. I would think that there's clearly success in finding college coaches and bringing them into the W. Is there a player out there who's ready to take on a coaching role? I don't know, but I suppose we'll find out.
What we do know is right now that is the only vacant head coaching post in the WNBA outside of the expansion teams. Yeah. Oh, I pulled up your. I pulled it up right before we started recording. Rebecca sent it to me per Annie Costable of Front Office Sports. Neither the Chicago Sky nor the Dallas Wings will pursue coaching staff changes ahead of 2026. Of course, the Sky ended the season 12th in the standings. The Wings finished last. Tyler Marsh, the head coach of the Sky after one season. Chris Koklanis, Coach Chris, is the coach and remains the coach of the Dallas Wings. However, folks, because come on, we love beef here. Annie also put out another report earlier today. Again, we're recording this on Monday, September 22nd. Courtney Vandersloot, Ariel Atkins, and Angel Reese will no longer conduct exit interviews. The team previously said that these three would hold exit interviews at a later date after they did not participate with the rest of the team when the season ended. And instead, Angel Reese, this is where the beef comes in, folks, was spotted ziplining in Belize despite the fact that she missed much of the second half of the season with a back injury. All I know is Rebecca Christie Sides brought her team to the postseason a year ago, and she didn't get fired until, quite frankly, Steph White was made available because she made it known that she would come home to Indiana. And so I don't buy, as much as I believe Annie's reporting as much as anyone in the space. Like, I don't buy that the Sky and the Wings are not making changes, especially after not only how both seasons ended, but the infighting drama within each regime.
I will say, especially with the Sky, there's definitely some interesting things there. Angel obviously shook things up a little bit. I don't think that she was. I think she did that interview that got out there at the wrong time. She should have just waited for the postseason to do that. And she could say whatever. I do think there's going to be changes either with Angel or with the coach. I just don't think that both are going to stay.
So you think do you think the two reports together say Angel's out, Tyler Marsh wins the power struggle?
I don't even know that Tyler Marsh wins the power struggle. I think that they're based on what we hear about Chicago, I wouldn't blame Angel for wanting to leave anyway. It seems like as a whole, there's issues with their facilities and just in general, clearly the way that some of the things that have been going on culture-wise just don't seem to be clicking. So lots of complaints from previous players who were in Chicago, like Courtney Williams, who've been pretty outspoken about it. So, is that a kind of her maybe willing her way out by doing these things? Possibly. But then I think that Chicago may not make a coaching change because they just did. And then it's like, how many times? I mean, I get it. Like, you don't do well, you're out. But like Tyler Marsh was with the Aces. There was success there. He was, he's been vouched for and spoken for. Is there maybe some merit in keeping him for another season and saying, hey, let's see what we can do with, some fresh legs, and you have almost a blank slate to potentially work with pending how, free agency and CBA things work out.
And do you say, well, we lost Sloot And by the way, at the age 37, coming off a second ACL tear, she will be back. Sorry, Angel. We also swung and missed on Haley Van Lith. She really is just a good 3x3 in college player, but because we're in line, oh, wait, you're not in line because your first round pick is going to the Lynx, even though you will have a first round pick later in this upcoming April's draft. Maybe we try to move up. Maybe we hope that Olivia Miles falls into our lap. We get a capable point guard, and then maybe our fortunes change just like that. But ultimately, I just think the whole thing's got to be blown up, and I don't think Angel Reese wants to be a part of it. Even if Tyler Marsh comes back and they accept, okay, maybe we aren't as close as we thought we were going into 2025, but we've also got to make changes to this roster. We may not win in 2026. And look, Angel Reese is 25 years old, but she's not going to stick around for that. She's just going to complain and like, let her. Maple Barbie. Rebecca Kopelman said it first, folks. As much as we said it on the Women's Basketball Podcast the last 2 weeks. Trademark Rebecca Kopelman.
I mean, I think that there's so many opportunities there for Angel too. If you want to go and be the face of a good franchise that's going to have this, these brand new facilities, and they're looking to build around somebody, there's an opportunity there. Will Chicago give her up? Will that work out? I don't know.
Well, but that's the interesting thing. Like if she's to be picked and plucked in one of these expansion draft by one of those two teams, like what does that say? Like that's going to be such a bombshell across the sports world that Angel Reese was made available in an expansion draft. Like I'm bracing myself for that headline because it's coming, and I'm excited for it because it's great content, and
I think it'd be awesome.
That's what she is.
And I think that, like, she is a fantastic player. The improvement that she's had with just finishing at the rim this year, and obviously still a prolific rebounder, that you can build around that. You can 100% build a team around her. And if
she's more of like a Robin, like she could be your Batman, but you better have a capable Robin because, well, she learned how to handle, bring the ball up and down the court a bit more this year and be a primary ball handler. I still think you need a secondary ball handler who's really your primary.
Yeah, I mean, I think that she shouldn't necessarily play that role. You could make her into a power forward. You could almost get kind of Alyssa Thomas out of her, but like I do think that she definitely performs better when she is able to be off the ball and you have her ready to rebound instead of having to, dish and run or to the rim or whatever it is. And I just think that, you definitely need a good point guard behind her there, and hopefully a veteran that's that will be good for her and also not get hurt and also not speak ill of her.
Yeah. Let's get to a couple more quick hits of beef, Rebecca, before we recap the postseason awards, which I know you're dying to give your takes on who won which awards and what we can expect moving forward when it comes to the postseason awards and the rest of the postseason. But back to the fever we go. Caitlin Clark was fined $200. Is that even real? She was fined $200 because she basically tried to say to the league, I don't care what you say. Our bench mob is awesome. And also we're great. And you stink, refs. So she gets fined $200. Sophie Cunningham goes on her podcast and she says the league doesn't want us to be in the semifinals. They're all sick. What do you make of the bench mob's comments, both publicly and on audio version with regards to, neither of these two players are healthy. Like they both have season ending injuries, and yet they're just like, still the number one and number two hype girls in Indiana.
I think that, having all of them there traveling with the team on the bench is so important. And the fact, there's hardly space for all of them. There wasn't space at one of the games. Like some of them were on the other side of the stadium. I don't know. But like, just the fact that they're there, they're supporting them, I think is huge. Being vocal is huge. And I'm sure like in practice and all those things, just having that support and still the basketball IQ of Caitlin Clark is super important and helpful. And I attest that the Fever would not be playing the same level of basketball without Caitlin being there, period, because you had all these players get elevated last season and earlier this season. But aside from that, all Caitlin said was the refs can't stop us on Instagram because they're just like bouncing off the walls on the bench. They fined her $200, and Sophie's making comments about, going to break the bank, going to start a GoFundMe for her, and just.
Do we really think it was $200? Like at least make it $2K. Like this woman is worth 9 figures, if not more, and you're out here like, that's fine.
I think it was an accurate amount for the transgression, I suppose, but they can't take a joke. But then the thing with Sophie, I don't quite understand that one. I think that if you want to play that kind of victim card or whatever,
like
I
the
think
Aces
that
are playing, by the way. The Aces are everybody, you know, is counting us out.
Yeah, I think that there's a little bit of like it maybe did not need to be said that way. I'm sure nobody really expected it. I don't think we need to play into the hand of like, oh, everyone hates the Fever. I think that there's obviously some hate surrounding how some fans act, which is unfortunate, and we do not
condone.
we do not associate that with that activity, because it's just you just have more people, and there's going to be crappy people that are in all the people, unfortunately, and it's it's that's the sports world of just fans and people saying crappy things, and probably mostly men. Apologies to the men listening and Dimitri, but we just I think that I would just put that out of their minds. And I think it's more like they definitely exceeded expectations with not only the amount of injuries, but the fact that Caitlin Clark was injured for a majority of the season that they're here. And I think the league should be happy they're there, because they're definitely going to have more eyeballs at this point.
I agree. And don't put them in a standalone game in the middle of an NFL Sunday, maybe, possibly. I know it's tough. I know you can't really predict the schedule. Also, Sophie Cunningham, open invitation to join the Women's Basketball Podcast whenever you want. I'm excited to see your budding television career. I'm calling it now, Rebecca. Like, I don't want to speak for my employer. I don't want to speak for NBC or CBS. Like, she's going to be on college basketball broadcasts this offseason. Like, I'm calling it now. Like, if she wants to, she will be. I would also, and this is the only time I'm going to mention it, I didn't even put it in the rundown. I don't want to take a victory lap. Personal friend of the show, Caitlin Clark. We both are purveyors of the Black Air Force Ones. And I was joking when I quote tweeted and was like, Caitlin, you got to wear them again for game 3 against the Dream. Not only did she wear them for game 3, not only did she bring them to game 1 against the Aces, they literally cheered around the Air Force One black shoe. I was worried because I didn't wear mine to the Jags game on Sunday, and I'm like, oh no, are they going to lose now? Because I don't know. No, they still won. So Caitlin, keep them on, and I'll wear mine too, just to support you.
She's 100% wearing them. Yeah,
it's epic. Like I don't want to say I took credit for it, but I was like, oh my God, this is such a great bit. Okay, let's quick recap. So far, the postseason awards that have been handed out for the 2025 WNBA season. A'ja Wilson, as mentioned, the first player to ever win 4 MVP awards. She received 51 of 72 first place votes. LOL, stick a pin in that. We'll circle on back. The co-defensive players of the year, the first time there have been co-winners of the award. Alana Smith of the Lynx and the aforementioned A'ja Wilson. Paige Beckers wins Rookie of the Year. Sonia Citron, the runner-up, with just 2 first place votes. As we mentioned, Naz Hillman, the 6th Woman of the Year. Natalie Nakase, the Coach of the Year. And finally, Veronica Burton, also of Golden State, the Most Improved Player. Before I give my issues with the A'ja Wilson presentation, your thoughts, Rebecca, on those award winners?
I think that, as I mentioned before on the Women's Basketball Podcast, that I think that there just needs to be more awards. And it's a small league in general, and you have such incredible players that it's so hard to just pick one. I don't know if we need to believe in the co-defensive player of the year thing, but they split the votes, so that's how it worked. But then I guess make a tiebreaker. I don't know, but I was not surprised, or I was surprised and not surprised by A'ja. I think she definitely was just because of the impact she was having on the Aces. And when Fee was out, the Lynx were still winning. Yep. So I just don't think that despite her, 40, 50, 90, which I thought was going to seal the deal with the MVP. It just, I don't think had as much of an impact on the Lynx as A'ja does for the Aces. So I think that's where that maybe comes in a bit. And that's just the run that they went on at the end of the season there.
Is this our fault? Is it because podcasters like us were like out here in the streets being like, if you took A'ja off the Aces aren't a playoff team. If you took Fee off the Lynx, they're still the number 1 seed. Is it us? Maybe. Like, I honestly, like, it's
Are we the problem?
Right. Well, it's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. Like, we talked about it. Mitch and I talked about it. Like, I mean, it depends on your definition of MVP, independent of the sport we're talking about. But ultimately, yes. Like, and she also had to work for it way more than her previous 3 MVP awards. much to the same ilk as Caitlin Clark 1 year ago. She was dragging a team that is undermanned through a 17-game win streak to the number 2 overall seed in the playoffs. Like, it's credit to A'ja. I don't think she's ever worked harder than she did this season, or at the very least, the fruits of her labor have not been as noteworthy, if only in the stat department.
Yeah, and I do think too that it is still a testament to these other women that you can see these other votes that were being given to Alicia Gray and obviously Fee, Kelsey Mitchell, and then Alyssa Thomas, and Aaliyah Boston finished 6th.
Second team All-Pro Aaliyah Boston incoming, folks, because she got 4th, 5th, and 6th place votes. Yeah. Here we go, baby.
And then Rakia Jackson had 1 vote, and she tweeted out, "Who do I owe dinners?" So just thought that was great. I would say a piece of beef in the MVP voting was notably Kelsey Plum, not on the list.
Has she tweeted? Has she posted on IG?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Okay, that's actually pretty surprising. No offense to Kelsey. I was expecting a little bit of tea. No, instead it's Excel management. Shout out to Excel. I have some friends that work there, so I don't want to bash them. But the MVP, that's our MVP. And you immediately, when I sent it to you, Rebecca, you were like, well, they'll be tweeting that about Caitlin if Caitlin doesn't win it next year too. So just the way that the cookie crumbles. All right, so you tell me, before we get to last call, in terms of beef, which do you have more beef with? The presentation for Rookie of the Year, comparatively to a season ago, in which all Kathy Engelbert did was call Caitlin Clark on the phone. Instead, we've got Paige Beckers on the Jennifer Hudson show, and we're dancing, and Kathy's there, and it's this whole
surprise.
Right, it's this whole surprise. Or, here we go, one of our favorite bits on the show. That guy on the Miami Heat, that guy from South Florida that A'ja Wilson loves to hang out with, coming with Kathy into pregame shoot around with the Kia MVP trophy to hand it to A'ja Wilson. And they just kind of like, here you go. Thanks. Why are you so weird? Just tell us.
I feel like that was, that's at this point.
I got more beef with that than I do the Jennifer Hudson bit, by the way. I'm fine with it. It's whatever. It's the growth of the league. Paige Beckers is eliminated from the postseason. Caitlin was not. It's fine. I'm not offended by it. But this I am, because I just want them to just kiss and get it out there.
I was waiting for that to happen and they didn't. That's what I was like, so I don't know, but I did think it was kind of iconic. I'm just not going to lie. I just think it was great that he was there and that he brought the trophy in. And then Asia's dad and the Aces owner were in pink wigs. All around, I'll give it a 9 out of 10, because then if they kissed, it would be 11 out of 10.
11 out of 10. Thank you,
But
Mark.
definitely some interesting trophy presentations. And the Aces were playing at home, but then also Shams, who doesn't ever cover the W, also broke the news at 8 in the morning, and I had it set 10:30
too. Yeah, I don't know. That's conspiracy. Everyone in the Jags press box that wants to ask me if the fix is in for the Lynx. No, the fix is in because Shams just decides to descend upon the space whenever he wants. Shout out Alexa Philippou. Shout out Kendra Andrews. They do good stuff. Michael Vopel's awesome. Shout out to my ESPN women's basketball crew. Myron too. Myron Metcalf, ESPN radio brother. All right, last call. Let's hit a couple storylines that we didn't get to. This one, I'm sorry that it took an hour for us to get to. Mitch Northam. Mitch Northam called it 1 year ago on the inaugural The Women's Basketball Podcast that Kara Lawson would be the next head coach of Team USA Basketball. And Rebecca Kopelman, who was announced today, Monday, September 22nd, as the next head coach of Team USA Basketball.
It was Kara Lawson.
Oh my God, who would have thought?
He was talking about this a few weeks ago too. So I heard it and then I saw it and I was like, oh.
Mitch was right. There you go, Mitch. And I don't want to say it, but I won't say specifics, but people who have the ear of USA Basketball, spend a lot of time with Kara Lawson. And so I was like, of course. Well, now, I heard something last week. Nope, that all makes sense. Speaking of USA Basketball, Elena Deladon was named the USA Basketball 3x3 team director. Great to hear. And everyone over at Team USA was like, yeah, as soon as she retired, we called her and said, hey, do you want to run 3x3? And we're going to have Kara Lawson run the national senior team. And here we are. So I enjoy the youth movement. I appreciate seeing some younger faces. Sorry, Cheryl Reeve into the space. I do think it's going to help having someone who's a former player in Elena overseeing the 3x3 circuit. But I also think having Carol Lawson, who has had the eye and has had the opportunity to witness two of the greatest rookie classes transition from college to the WNBA, and another great class coming forth. Oh, and then by the way, Juju Watkins after that. I think it's going to benefit the 2028 Olympic team out in Los Angeles.
For sure. And you have Sue Bird at the helm of all of it. So, I mean, who better, honestly?
Yeah. No, and everybody's friends, you know, no offense to Cheryl, but everybody's friends now. Cheryl's going to win another title in a few weeks, and then she can wear a new t-shirt
and get the number one pick.
That's a story we'll get to another time. We leave you with this. Lexi Hull, never stop making TikTok videos, even when you have a black eye. I don't know. The league's out here fining Caitlin Clark $200, and Homegirl is having caviar cones in Vegas. Like, I don't know, man. Shout out to Lexi. Shout out to Caitlin. Rebecca, do you have anything else before we get out of here?
Well, because you mentioned at the top two, we do have unrivaled players being announced. Erica Wheeler being one of them, one of the newcomers, and then return of Alyssa Thomas. We've had Haley Van Lith has said that she's doing it. Sanaya Rivers and Paige Beckers. So there was another returner on there, but I mean, they're going to be there. They're going to be back. 2 new expansion teams coming to Unrivaled too. So exciting stuff for the off season of the W.
I love it here. Let's make sure. Thank you. This is why Rebecca's here. She keeps us on our P's and Q's and make sure that we hit all of our news and notes. Yes, Sanaya Rivers is unrivaled. Erica Wheeler is unrivaled. Paige Beckers, and then Satu Sabali was the other player, in addition to Alyssa Thomas and Rakia Jackson. 1 vote, Rakia Jackson. Whoever that voter is, if you're out there listening to the Women's Basketball Podcast, let Rakia know.
She'll take you to dinner.
Yeah, I would take a free steak dinner or just beef, because we love beef and we also love women's basketball. Rebecca, thanks for sitting in for Mitch. Let's do this again sometime, because Mitch is on paternity leave for the next few weeks. So we may be calling you out of the bullpen, or maybe our friend Kevin Schwartz. But hey, we have some fun. We've got postseason action in full swing, and something tells me we'll have even better games to talk about this time next week. Until then, we'll catch you next week.
Deuces.